Let's talk about a controversial topic, and that is not necessarily the Somo Gear PEQ 15, because that horse has been pretty much beat to death and I'm gonna let it rest. I don't plan on doing a dedicated review of this because the internet is saturated with it. But I want to talk about PEQ 15 clones in general. So here is the Somo Gear, and I know it's an LA5B or whatever. I know it's not a PEQ 15, the difference being the adjustment turrets here, and obviously the real version would have a stronger output than a PEQ 15, but bear with me, I'm going to call it a PEQ 15. This is the Big PEQ's 15 clone. This is what he calls it. This is NAVC clone. Got the NAVC logo there. And it is rated to have a 100 milliwatt illuminator. So get into the big boy numbers there a little bit. And before you judge me, yes, we have a real PEQ 15 to compare them to. So that's what we're going to do today, guys. We're going to compare this real L3 PEQ 15 to the clones. First of all, actual PEQ 15s have a polymer housing of sorts. It is composite, and they are mostly air. They're pretty much hollow. Here at only 180 grams is the Somo Gear. Now, when I first picked up the Big PEQ's 15 clone, substantially more weight, it felt better in the hand. Even the polymer feels better. Everything about the Big PEQ's 15 feels better. So again, 219 grams. The real deal is 202 grams. So kind of in between the two in terms of weight. And I'm not saying that's completely indicative to build quality, but I wanted to point that out as a potential point of comparison. Now, in terms of the overall build, these two feel much more similar in terms of the quality. The Somo Gear, it definitely feels like the toy that it is, just being honest. The Somo Gear, I broke off the cover for the illuminator, but you'll notice that it has covers, it's not actual diffusers. Whereas the Big PEQ's 15, and obviously the real deal, have actual diffusers. This one is a little salty, so it's gone. In terms of switches, they function the same, except the LA5B style clones go all the way to aim high. Now, this thing is pretty strong. I will say that the Somo is going to be the strongest of all of them. Comparison there. The real PEQ, it's okay. Not great. I'm not a huge fan of red lasers. Now, obviously, these kind of lasers can be somewhat hard to track down and find, so if you happen to be trying to collect something of this nature, I recommend you get in touch with Vital Endeavors, because they are godsends when it comes to tracking down these kinds of devices. Here are the actual measured power outputs for all these units for both the visible IR and IR illuminators. So, although I don't have the budget or the time with all these units to do thousands and thousands of rounds through them to tell you for sure which one happens to work better or be more reliable, I know that the PEQ 15 has a fairly decent track record. You're naive if you think people don't have to make adjustments over time. Me being former military and still being friends with people that are still active in the military, I know for a fact that it's pretty standard procedure that before you go out on a mission, you quickly check to make sure this is aligned with your optic, and it's not a super rare or startling occurrence if you have to make adjustments to realign it with your optic. These two have overall been pretty reliable for me as well, but as you can see right now, they're not mounted to anything. I can't really tell you a super long term has it drifted because I take them off of things and switch them around, but while being mounted onto a host, I have not had any issues. So I figured the next best thing that I could do to kind of give you guys an idea of the reliability or maybe quality of the materials and internals inside each of these respective units is to conduct a tracking test to see how well the turrets actually make consistent and repeatable adjustments, as well as take some measurements on the alignment of the Vis and IR laser. Why do I care about that? Well, like I said, it's not uncommon that you have to tweak the laser to your optics. So if you do it in the daytime, will you be able to trust it that it's going to be good at night, or do you have to do it under night vision? As far as tracking goes, if you have to make adjustments and you move things around, I think it just speaks to the quality of the internals. So again, since I don't have tons of budget to put thousands and thousands of rounds, this is still a data point I hope you find relevant. in terms of a comparison point. So getting into the visual illuminator comparisons now, I think it's relevant and helpful for you to get a visual on what you're looking at, which is going to be targets starting at 100 and all the way to 500 yards at 100-yard increments. On the 4x8 black backdrops, there is not only a dark silhouette, but a white silhouette to give you some difference there. Now, as always, huge shout out to Armasight for helping make this video possible. Without Armasight, I wouldn't have the night vision devices to record this kind of content. Armasight has nothing to gain from this, so I gotta give them a shout out, and all I ask is you guys keep them in mind for your potential night vision needs. Okay, so first on the comparison is gonna be the L3 PEQ 15, Illuminator High, and now we have photonic barriers, some dim lights shining downrange at different distances to illuminate things. So we got the L3 right there, okay? Okay, so on the left is the L3 PEQ 15, and then on the right is the big PEQ 15 clone. You can see I have them roughly the same size. Now I'm going to show you the Somo gear, as wide as this dude can go. As you can see, the Somo has decent output, not quite as bright, but it doesn't diverge as much, so the fact that it's only this bright at that tight of a beam shows that it's not nearly as strong of an illuminator. Let me show you the 50-yard target. So here's the L3 PEQ 15. The big PEQ 15 clone. It's a slightly cleaner illuminator than the real PEQ 15, and this is a pretty clean PEQ 15 illuminator. So for those that aren't familiar with these, this would be considered a pretty clean illuminator and would go for a higher price. Some of them get very, very muddy. There's not too many dark spots. As you can see, there's just a little bit of that petri dish effect from the edge emitting laser. Big PEQ 15, very much on par with a actual clean illumination PEQ 15. And then the Somo gear is actually respectably clean, but just so much tighter. So that stand right there is a little over 6 feet tall. It's a gray t-shirt on a steel target, just to kind of be our model downrange without making any of my buddies go blind. So not nearly as wide. Real PEQ 15, big PEQ 15 clone, and then the Somo gear PEQ 15 on the right. What I will do now is I'm going to, just so that the Somo aren't saying he's the widest range, I'm going to tighten it to about right there. I'm going to match all these in terms of size. Big PEQ 15 takes quite a while to adjust. And then let's make the real PEQ 15 about that size. That one actually gets kind of dirty fast. Widen these just a little bit. The real PEQ is still comparable. Okay, so kind of like medium focus, 500 yards, real PEQ 15. Here's the big PEQ 15, and then the Somo gear. Now, there's not a whole lot of point in converging these real ones all the way because they do turn into a laser beam. Now, the real PEQ 15 doesn't take very long to spin it. I will say that is a huge difference between the real one and then the big PEQ 15. I got to rotate it numerous times. I did about probably 4 turns, whereas the real PEQ 15 does not take nearly as many rotations. Here's the Somo gear last, but not necessarily least. The Somo gets reasonably tight, not laser beam tight, but usable at 500 yards with the photonic barrier. And obviously the real PEQ 15 and the big PEQ 15 clone is going to be able to diverge, or converge rather, to a laser beam and more than illuminate things at 500 yards. No problem. Take one last look at 100. There's the real PEQ 15 that's widened first. Twisting, twisting, twisting on the big PEQ 15. And one last look at the SOMO. Definitely harder than it looks to do all these. So both the real PEQ 15 obviously has an automatic timeout, and you saw the big PEQ 15 also did the same thing, so similar functions. So here's the 3. So you have it. We have the actual PEQ 15 there on the left. Let's compare it to the SOMO gear. PEQ 15, these are as wide as they'll go. So the SOMO gear appears brighter, but it's a tighter beam. And the big PEQ 15 on the right. This is his NavC version, by the way. Bear with me trying to do this one-handed. So PEQ 15 is on the left, SOMO gear, and the big PEQ 15 right there, Nocturnal Industries. Very, very bright illuminator there. So real PEQ 15, about a medium-sized illuminator on that range. Here's the SOMO gear, as wide as it's gonna go, but still more narrow. And here is the big PEQ 15. Pretty darn bright. SOMO gear and PEQ 15. All right, real PEQ 15, completely narrowed illuminator on the left. SOMO gear, completely narrowed illuminator. And the big PEQ 15 clone, the NavC clone. Yeah, wow. Overly bright. I'm just moving them so I don't burn my tube, guys. Just apologies. So this is shining at the 500-yard range and overpowering. That big PEQ 15 is definitely much hotter, to my eye at least. So I'm not trying to make this video any more drawn out than I think it needs to be to give you guys an idea of how they compare. And again, I'm trying to not just keep regurgitating everything that's already on the internet when it comes to the SOMO gear offerings, but I thought I'd give you a different perspective in terms of the different relevant PEQ 15 clones. And I say relevant loosely, guys, don't beat me up. Me, personally, if I can find something for a fraction of the cost that works for just having fun at night, I'm probably gonna try it out. I'm not planning on kicking indoors with any of these options. I'm no longer in that line of work, but I'm happy to save money so I can spend more on other things in life. So you do you. If you want to spend on the real deal, or if you think these may be worth giving a shot, that's the cool thing about this country, guys. You got the freedom to do what you want, at least for now when it comes to these kind of things. But point being, I hope this video gives you information to draw your own conclusions on what may make sense for you. With that said, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to stop by the 4MR Ranch channel. And as always, guys, have a good one.